my struggle. So we'll just continue on. Regent Collins?
Yes, I hope I'm unmuted, right? You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, we did talk about this school, David and Allison. We did have a conversation about it, and the fact that David has been working with them over this past year to put together an academic plan for them, and that the office now wants to help them to implement this plan. It's wonderful that they interceded, but they interceded after the school has been there for 5 years. And I think a 2-year approval for them would give them an opportunity to implement this plan. However, if we do vote for it, I'm hoping that those individuals who are pushing to keep it open will implement the plan. This charter school just started a curriculum committee. And that's something that I think that all schools should have, is some type of curriculum committee to help guide their instruction. It's a wonderful school. I've been to that school. They try hard, but we have to help these charter schools that are trying, but no one seems to intervene. Now, I was told that districts are supposed to supervise the charter schools, but because we just don't have written details in terms of what that means, we leave it up to the district to put their people in when they think they should go in. But this is one of the flaws in the law. We need to revise this law so we can have some type of a manageable charter school system in New York State. Now, this school, again, I've been at the school. It's a lovely school. The children are wonderful. Everybody is challenged, but it's 5 years later. Now, if we approve it today, who's going to help that school implement the plan that David and Allison has put together? David, who's going to implement the plan? Is someone going to be there to make sure the plan is being implemented? If so, then I would be willing to say, let's try it. If somebody's going to help them, you just don't give them a plan and say, here, go do it. You're the one who worked with them. What is their plan? Tell me what their plan is.
So thank you for those remarks, Regent Collins. So first and foremost, we have assigns a liaison from my office to the Charter School of Inquiry, a wonderful woman named Susan Gibbons, who will be working with the school throughout the next charter term, if the Regents approve, to make sure that that plan is implemented. One of the things that we also really like about the Charter School for Inquiry is that, as you mentioned, they do have a very close connection to the district. And we know that the Charter School for Inquiry has been in communication with the Buffalo Public School District and will continue to share effective practices, and that's a two-way street, of course. In terms of the plan, we think that it's a sound plan that the school actually created with guidance from us at the State Ed Department. It not only refocuses the school's initiatives around curriculum, as you mentioned, they'll be having a curriculum committee, but also they are going to be rethinking how they use data to help drive instructional decision-making. Both, I call it data with a little d and data with a big D. So exit tickets, interviews with conferencing with students as they're engaging in coursework, but also looking at interim assessments that they'll give, as well as the state assessments. They also will continue to build upon the very strong foundation around social emotional learning. This school has a very close connection with the African American community in Buffalo. It's a wonderful hub of the arts, their neighborhood in Buffalo. And if you haven't seen some of their art shows, I'd recommend you go. And but it's a robust plan. They're also going to be thinking about the expertise that they have in the school in order to implement the plan. So we're very confident that the plan will be implemented. And we will give them we're recommending giving them the 2 years to see if they're implementing that plan with fidelity, and they can work towards meeting and exceeding the Board of Regents performance framework standards.
Because you have a person that you have assigned, you have assigned someone from your office to work directly with them.
That's correct.
So how often can you give us updates? Because I've asked this on other schools too, and we don't get the updates. I'd like to know that the plan is being implemented and that the kids are really doing well. So how often can you get some updates to us to let us know that they're doing well? You know, we invest a lot of money in these schools. We put a lot of money into these schools. We want them to be successful. And they can't be successful if we don't help them. So with this school, how often can you give us an update on where they are?
So for all Board of Regents authorized charter schools, our office does an extensive series of monitoring and oversight activities. So we have check-in visits, we do midterm site visits where a formal report is created. And so we can give you I think it makes sense for us to give you the same updates for Charter School for Inquiry that we did for Westminster and Enterprise, which were 2 of the Buffalo authorized charter schools. So next year we can work on creating an update for you and whoever else on the board is interested. And then of course, as always, between now and then, we can continue to keep you updated informally. Or if you have any questions, we're only an email or phone call away.
Yes, David, give us a calendar of when you're going to give us the updates. Give us a calendar so I'll know an update on this school is coming in 5 months, 6 months, 7 months, or whatever. Give us a calendar. Let us so we can have something so I can note it that look for the update.
We'll do that, Regent Collins.
Okay, thank you. We are running behind schedule. I'm going to ask all of you who have your hands up and ask any further questions to be very concise and brief with your questions or words. Regent Reyes, followed by Regent Mittler, followed by Regent Thin.
Thank you. In the material, it indicates outcomes and the variance. It indicates special population enrollment and the variance to the district, and retention, all students and special populations. And I hear you talking about the academic outcomes, but I'm interested to know to what specificity the plan includes efforts and results expected in terms of students with special needs, ELL, who are vastly underrepresented compared to the school district.
Thank you for that question, Regent Reyes. As you know, our performance framework has 10 benchmarks, and academics is the first benchmark, but equity and access for all students is and remains a top priority for us in the charter school office, as well as the whole department. And so part of the plan is to address those enrollment disparities between economically disadvantaged students, students with disabilities, and English language learners. And one of the goals that we have is to close that gap between enrollment as well as for retention for the populations you mentioned. Part of the plan is to connect the school with community-based organizations that serve students with disabilities, as well as some of the great local community-based organizations for English language learners in Buffalo, so that the school is not only part of the hub of the community for where they are in particular, but that they can reach populations that they haven't been serving to date. So that will remain a top priority for us. And we've expressed to the school that that would remain one of our critical issues with them that could lead to adverse renewal recommendations in the future should they not address it. So that is on our forefront of our minds.
If you would just include that in your report that Regent Collins requested.
Absolutely.
Regent Mittler?
Yes, I wanted to know whether your plan includes any alternate forms of assessment if we're going to have monitoring over time? Because I'm looking at the state comparison on the academic outcomes variance, and we want to have charter schools be equal or better than. And I understand that there are problems, but these are double digits, 29 and 36 we're looking at ELA and math. That's significant deficit. So with the plan, and I'm willing to give them a chance and look at a plan, I want to know that the plan includes some kind of ongoing assessment, not waiting for state assessments. So is that going to be done, or is that something can be requested?
Very good point, Regent Mittler. And we, especially given that we don't have state assessments this year, the school has put into place interim assessments that they believe are aligned with the state standards. Now, we know that there isn't 100% correlation, but the school is implementing that. And like I said, it's not just high stakes formal assessments, but rather we are pushing the school to work with their teachers so that teachers know that authentically, as they're going along in their scope and sequence, that teachers understand which students have grasped the standards and which haven't, so they can make decisions on reteaching and pull out groups and interventions.
Regent Finn?
Thank you. So my question really is about equity, and you've answered it partially. You talk about being on top of being more inclusive. Let's just cut to the chase. But I'm concerned also about having schools that have majority of non-white students, students of color, and yet they don't have enough teachers that look like them. They may have an administration, as I got a letter from one of the constituents that says 0 people of color in the administration. So what are we doing about that?
So I think, to go back to the educator diversity report that Allison presented a few months ago at the Regents meeting, that's a problem statewide. But to focus, take a laser focus on Charter School for Inquiry in Buffalo, I think that you would be pleasantly surprised what you're seeing in that charter school. And Regent Collins certainly can talk to you about it, as well, as I know that she's visited. But the Charter School for Inquiry believes in diversity not only for their students, but also for their staff. They're working with local colleges on creating a pipeline for diverse educators. They also are using our state's alternative teacher certification pathways, the transitional B program, to get teachers or teaching assistants from underrepresented communities on the pathway towards certification as this is an elementary school, so K-5 certification, and to work with the school. So it remains a priority for the department as a whole, and it remains a priority for the Charter School for Inquiry. And we'd be happy to talk to you further about specifics offline in the interest of time.
I would just be happy
Okay.
if we mentioned all of this about equity in all of your reports, and so we don't have to keep asking the same questions. But thank you so much.
Of course.
Thank you. There are no further questions. Are you ready to entertain a motion? I believe we are.
I'll move it. Thank you. Motion by Regent Tillis.
Second.
Second by Regent Vice Chancellor Brown. We will proceed with the roll call again. Please, all regents, unmute yourselves so you can record your vote. Vice Chancellor Brown, sir.
Yes.
Regent Tillis.
In accordance with Regent Collins' comments about monitoring and maybe looking at changing the law, I vote yes too.
Regent Young.
Yes.
Regent Sia.
Yes.
Thank you. Regent Norwood.
Aye.
Regent Cashin.
Yes.
Regent Cottrell.
Yes.
Regent Finn.
Aye.
Regent Chin. Speak up, ma'am, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Thank you. Regent Odekirk. Regent Odekirk, one time before second call. Regent Collins.
Yes.
Regent Mead.
Yes.
Regent Hackinson.
Yes.
Regent Reyes.
Yes.
Regent Mittler.
Yes.
Regent Wills.
Yes.
Second call for Regent Odekirk on the telephone. Regent Odekirk will be noted as unavailable for purposes of the vote. Chancellor Rosa, final vote.
I believe the motion carries.
Chancellor Rosa noted unavailable. Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, next item.
Next, we have item A8, Buffalo Academy of Science Charter School. The department is making this renewal recommendation for approval and issuance as required by Article 56 of the Education Law and Commissioners Regulation 119.7. At the May 2020 Board of Regents meeting, the department's initial renewal recommendation for this school was rejected. In other words, renewal was denied. The charter school then submitted a written response, which is included in the Regents item. David, if you have page numbers, you can just pipe up with, I think it's an attachment at the back of the item. So now the regulations require that the Board of Regents shall reconsider the charter school's renewal application. Originally, the school was originally authorized to serve 5th through 12th grades, and then the Regents previously approved the school to serve elementary school grades. The current revision allows the school to fully implement that prior Regents action by permitting the school's current second graders to matriculate into 3rd grade in the next academic year and continue into 4th grade the following year. In addition, the school, which is currently in a full-term 5-year renewal, is being recommended for another full 5-year term based on the criteria set forth in the Regents endorsed performance framework. And that framework is also in your item. David, can you give the page number where the framework is?
Yep. The school's response is on page 18 of the Regents item, and the framework is on page 4 of the Regents item.
Great. And specifically, according to, against looking at it against the framework, the school has compiled a strong and compelling record of meeting or exceeding benchmark 1. And at the time of the renewal analysis, it has met substantially all of the other performance benchmarks in the framework. The academics were shared with you in May and are in the Regents item on pages that David will give as soon as I finish my sentence. And we would just note that the school has a 94% high school graduation rate, which exceeds city and state standards. So I will pause here.
And the data for the school is starting on page 9 of this item, but it's on page 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15, and 17.
Regent Finn? Regent Finn, you have to unmute.
Thank you. I should have lowered my hand. It was still up, right?
All right. Did you read back your?
But I wanted to, can I speak
Certainly.
about this application?
Yes, please.
Yeah, because I'm one of the people that voted against it the first time around. And again, I had serious concerns with some of the things I was hearing in some of the letters emails I was receiving. And one of them came from a Kenneth Rumore, Buffalo Teachers Federation. And he talked a lot about some of the things that were not within our equity standards. And I mentioned one earlier, I didn't mention the school, with zero administration of people of color, but majority of people of color being the students. You see this over and over again. You see low numbers when it comes to L's and with people with disabilities and so forth. That was my big objection. I think we just got to start putting a stop to this. Now, I don't want to see the little children in the COVID-19 situation that we're in. That's not me. I don't want to see these children being pulled to go somewhere else in the middle of all this. I don't want to have that happen. So I'm willing to reconsider, but I want to know, what are they going to do about those things?
Yeah, and so the Buffalo Academy of Science is actually, the school leader is an immigrant. He came to the United States to start, to improve education here in New York. The school also does have teachers from a variety of backgrounds, that it's not just monolithic. However, we would, when evaluating a charter school, we always go back to two things. One, what's in the law, and two, what's in the Regents endorsed policies and framework. And so we understand that that is a big issue and that it's an important issue. However, we would be mindful, and I would look to Aaron regarding this, but we would be mindful of what our statutory obligations are under the law, what we're allowed to evaluate the school on, and what my office is permitted to look at pursuant to those Regents policies and procedures, which are not include the items of which you include Regent Fit are not in them.
I beg to differ. If you say that you're using some of our own policies, internal policies, one of the first things that was mentioned when you started this section, that part of the law is our internal policy. That's what we are. We're policy makers. So I would beg to differ on that point. But if you can show me something in the law that says I'm wrong, then obviously I will recant.
I heard Regent Young make a point earlier regarding the recommendation from the Educator Diversity Report that the board consider establishing a workforce diversity policy, and that would be something that we could refer to in a situation like this in the future.
By counsel, for now, Alice and David have accurately summarized in the item and guided you with page references to the criteria on pages 4, 5, and 6 of the Regents item, and particularly those under the educational benefit to the students expected to attend the charter school and the renewal policies governing short-term, long-term, or non-renewal.
May I speak now?
Regent Collins, Regent Wills, Regent Rosa, Regent Mittler, and then we have to call the item. We're running late, way over. Regent Collins?
Well, when we looked at this program last month, there appears to be such a disconnect between the information that we receive and the information that is, it's like the right hand don't know what the left hand is doing. When we came together, I did ask this question: if this school had another school that had gone through our process, and David later said that he didn't understand or he made a mistake when he told me no. But this school we approved in January, was it David, or February? January we approved a second charter school for health sciences. But at the same time, in March, SUNY had approved another school for Buffalo as well. So we got 2 schools within 3, 4, 5 months. And as I'm doing my investigation, I find out that Buffalo has another school coming from SUNY, that Yonkers has 2 schools coming from SUNY, that Rochester have another school coming from SUNY, and what is this? One other school district that has, Mount Vernon has another charter school coming. So it would be good, so David, when you present information to us, give us the background. Let us know what SUNY's doing in terms of adding schools. Because as it stands in Buffalo right now, we're over that 5%. We're closer to 20%.
Yes.
And as it relates to students with disabilities, we're at 31% in the district. So there's some, we need information so we can make informed decisions. Now, we did not have that information, I think, last month. But I've looked at the school. I've talked to parents and just people just calling and asking about the school because the children that are in that first and second grade or first, second grade do not have another school to go to, but there's plenty of seats in the Buffalo Public School and there's plenty of seats, I think, in other charter schools. But the item now you're recommending to 2025, you're recommending a 5-year. I've received the same information that Regent Finn has, where they say the school are all minorities, but there are no minority faculty. I feel as though that we can give them an extension, but there are some things that I think, just like the School of Inquiry, need to do and report back to us. I'm going to make a motion at some point that we grant them a 3-year, because I think we should stay connected to these schools that come forward and have issues. And that we should be monitoring them, not only the charter schools in Buffalo, but all schools that are not doing well. We should be monitoring them and offering the help and looking at their budgets and seeing if they have the money that they can do what needs to be done to educate their kids. So I'm going to make a motion at some point and ask that we approve them to 2023. Not to 2025, that's 5 years. And we have brought up things that I think need to be addressed. The district children who are in the public school are 31% disabled. Now, I'm not sure of when they revise that data so we can have something that the charters can compare to. But they won't meet that. So we need to make sure that we have all the information when we are looking at any school, but particularly charter schools. Every grade that we have, that we include in a charter school, is $1 million. So we have to make sure that when we approve these schools, that they're going to be able to educate those kids. That $1 million or $2 million per grade goes a long way. So I am going to, and I don't know, because I've heard you say a couple of times that we need to move along. But the item calls for 2025, I think, for 5 years. And I'm saying 2023 for 3 years. That would be my motion. And if we want to cut it off now, I'll move that we approve this application for 2023 for a 3-year renewal rather than a 5-year renewal. That will give them an opportunity to get their kids into other schools, to open up the new schools that they have, for Buffalo to look at how much money we're going to be spending that we probably don't have because they're already laying off people. So I'm going to make that motion, and I think you can make it at any point during a meeting. You can make a motion. So I'm going to make that motion.
Regent Collins, I'm going to reserve on your motion because I've already indicated to other people.
Okay, all right.
And because we proceeded on that basis throughout the day, I think we should continue. Regent Wills, Regent Rosa, Regent Mittler. Regent Wills, you have to unmute.
Yes. Thank you. I regret that at the last meeting we had that I voted against the proposition of renewal. Again, I think my views were probably influenced by the situation with the pandemic, the fear of funding issues for many of our school districts, and for the reason that I worried about the effect of the charter on the Buffalo schools. However, I have reconsidered, after great internal struggle, I have reconsidered and very strongly believe that this school, once I reviewed all of the material, plus the letters I received, the kind of support that school has from the constituency, from parents, from students, I feel that it's an unnecessary burden on those students, on those parents to refuse to renew fully this school, which I see as exemplary in what it has done in terms of student achievement and well-being. I do agree that for all of our schools, we need to look at recruitment for the purpose of ensuring that we have teachers who look like the students. I feel this is something that we need to do throughout, but I strongly believe that with respect, I do respect my colleagues and their views, but I feel very strongly that we should support for the renewal of the 5 years.
Regent Rosa and then Regent Mittler.
Regent Odekirk.
I'm going to defer to Regent Odekirk first, and then I'll go right after her.
Regent Odekirk?
Yes, thank you. I don't know what the problem has been, but it's been very frustrating from this end. I think that was Fran that was just speaking. I totally agree with her. I've spoken with she and a number of other members of the Board of Regents. And I want to make 2 points, and I'll try to be very succinct. One is that the issue, to me, that on that particular date, May 4th, at the time we were having that discussion, I was focusing more on the funding part of things and money being taken from public schools, but I know we, in essence, called the charter schools public as well. But when the governor and the legislature come up with new ideas, I think they should have a funding that goes for that and not mess with the funding that's supposed to go elsewhere. My other point is this, as Fran said, the thing of it is, when I got in the quiet time, reflected on our tough conversation in May, I said to myself, I'm somebody who for 60 years in public education in New York State has stood for what's in the best interests of kids. And when I got thinking about that situation and jerking the kids going into 3rd or 4th grade around, I thought this is not the right thing to do. So I will be changing my vote as well. Thank you for giving me time.
Thank you. Regent Mittler?
Yes, I think that Regent Collins makes some very important points. I've been advised that when I cast my vote in May, I had a misunderstanding of certain issues. One of them was that there was going to be an expansion of 2 grades. In fact, I've been informed at least 400 times that it would just be a continuation, 2nd graders going to 3rd, and they wouldn't fill the 4th grade until the following year. So it would step by step and going. So that is not an expansion as I had anticipated it. I also understand, having read the requirements, understanding the legislative and statutory aspect of it, that there is a dire need for us to be more specific in our law so that we can in fact address this appropriately, because funding is an issue, but not one that I can take into consideration now. So I will put that aside. I do believe that although this is a very strong school, they do have some issues that need to be addressed, and that could be addressed in 3 years and without any problem as they show their progress. All those children, all the grades will be filled in, and we can then continue. So I will cast a yes vote, but I do want to cast it for a 3-year extension. Thank you.
Chancellor?
Sure. I have been listening to the 2 conversations, and what I find a little unsettling is that we breeze through the other charter school and their L's and special ed, which we harp on many, many times. And it's so fascinating to hear how all of a sudden that was placed, quickly said, and also placed in a framework of saying, let's do a plan. Let's get them support. How are we doing that? I find the unevenness a little unsettling. And I also think that given our framework, our guidance, they have met 9 out of 10. And yet we are moving them into a place where many of our charters that have been 5 look like this school. Now, granted, I'm fine with revisiting the framework and knowing that we have to do a better job in terms of diversity and maybe diversity in other areas. But our current framework places this school as a 5 and places the school as a 9 out of 10. And most teachers on this screen and most people in society, if a child got 9 out of 10, that would be an A. And most of you have looked at a school that we just talked about before that was really, really struggling on so many counts, and yet you were willing to give it a 2 with a plan, with a lot of support. So I would say, for me, a 5 is a 5. That's the gold standard. They have to work on the issue of diversity. They have to work on some of the other issues, but they're 9 out of 10, and that is a 5.
Thank you.
Regent Reyes, was your hand up? Regent Reyes?
Hand is up.
Regent Reyes?
I'm here.
Did you have something to say, please?
Yes, you asked us to
Yes.
brief,
Yes.
and, but also to the point, benchmark 9 is under found faithfulness to charter and laws is enrollment, recruitment, and retention. And it talks about meeting or making annual progress. I'm not clear from what has been sent to us that there has been annual progress in meeting the under-enrollment of English language learners and students with disabilities. I am in total agreement that they're a successful school, and I'm in agreement with the many letters that have been written that says all students deserve great schools. It's a great school. Students with special needs and English language learners, as well as all other students, have deserve to be there. And so I'm prepared to vote a yes on a 3-year and to abstain if it's not and I want to see a plan, not a plan, I want to see a report that shows more than just good faith effort, but actual improvement.
Thank you. Regent Tillis?
Yes, I would agree with Regent Reyes, Regent Collins. I was particularly concerned, given our situation on Long Island and Hempstead, where such a large amount of money is coming from the main general ed district into the charters, that I was the same concern I have for Buffalo. I'm willing to look at the 3-year extension.
All right. Regent Mead?
Thank you, Vice Chancellor. So, I mean, we had all month to kind of talk about a three-year renewal in light of what happened last month. And I'll be honest, I decided pretty early on after last month's meeting I was going to change my vote. It was really just a protest vote because I didn't get the answer I wanted from David on the COVID response. So recognizing that focus was very narrow and wasn't necessarily aligned with the framework, obviously I'm going to change my vote to a yes. We had all month to talk about this. There were a number of conversations going back and forth behind the scenes about how we, in response to the hundreds, I don't know about anybody else, but I got hundreds of emails over the course of the month. And I can't believe in less than an hour that we're sitting here trying to change the parameters of this vote from a 5-year to a 3-year. What happened?
All right, I don't think that calls for a question, but I do understand your point, Regent Mead. Regent Young?
Yes, just a couple of points. We all have identified diversity as a priority. But what I'm struggling with is that we also voted on a framework. We also voted to give this school a charter. And as I understand it, these are the administrators, these are the same administrators when we gave them the charter. So I'm trying to figure out what are we actually saying? Because I don't believe we're saying that if you're granted a charter, we expect you to change the administration over the course of time. So I think we've got to be careful and consistent in what it is we do and how we do it. And you can't make up things as you go along. That is not what I consider to be a good reflection on the work that we do. If we have an issue with the framework, then we ought to amend the framework. But it seems to me that what we're doing now, and I've heard this as we've talked about these schools, we're trying to make up rules to apply to the specific school. And how do you do that? I mean, I don't understand how that helps us with our decision making. We don't do that with any school. We discuss schools all across this state. We discuss low performing schools, and not a person here says, well, let's look at the diversity of the administration. So it just seems to me that if we're going to make decisions that have some integrity, we ought to be making decisions based on something that we can all agree to. Because I think right now we're into something. I, for one, I did not vote against this school. I voted for the school last time. And I see no reason why I wouldn't vote for this school this time. This is a high performing school. The 87% of the kids I understand, are Black. That's number one. Number two, my understanding of charters is that the school just doesn't go into the district and take kids and put them in school. The parents have to opt into a lottery. So here's the question that I understand that we want them to do a better job informing and recruiting. But suppose the parents don't want their children to go there. Are we going to penalize the school because the school doesn't reflect that demographic? See, I think there's information here that we don't have, and we're making assumptions based on information that's not available. So that said, I'm just sharing because everyone else had something to say, but thank you.
All right, there's a lot has been said. This school is back before us for reconsideration. I want to point out and remind everyone that the legislation enacting charter schools in New York specifically was to offer school choices. And for the parents and the students in a district, you want good choices. You only want good choices. This school has a 94% graduation rate. There's very few schools that have that high a graduation rate in the state. And let's remember, we're now, it seems like we're talking about a 3-year as opposed to a 5-year. To give one school a 3-year when we've given other schools 5 years that have lesser performance is a struggle for me. I believe that we have to treat these charters the same across the state, and there are specific criteria to evaluate schools or benchmarks that have been put in place. We as the Regents approved them, and they've been changed at different times throughout my years on the Board of Regents. I don't know how this school could be better positioned to receive a 5-year than it is now.
Mm-hmm.
Some would look at this and think a 3-year is not a reward, but a punishment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we should keep that in mind. I would support and agree with my colleagues, including the chancellor, who have stated their belief that this is a school that warrants a 5-year renewal. And one last thing I'll say, it's been mentioned that the school is not perfect, but have any of us on this call ever worked at or seen a school that is perfect? I haven't, and I would bet that no one else has. Of course, the school can improve. Of course, the school can be better in certain ways. If a school came to us and said, well, we can't be any better, we're as good as it gets, end of story, on that basis alone, I would say we should deny the charter for the renewal. But this school, I think, has performed well, and I think they should be rewarded with a 5-year renewal. I believe, Regent Collins, I'm going to allow you to have the last word, and then we're going to have
yes. Thank you.
how to do this.
Just let me say this. Yes, the school academics is doing well, but this school also has another school that's coming online in the fall. And so they have a lot of work to do. 3 years gives them an opportunity to get their other school open so we can monitor that school as well. And to also make adjustments where there's a need to make adjustments. In the fact that this school has, yes, all minority kids, no minority role model, none. And yet we are going to move forward on this. And we also know that we need to have this law revised. And the benchmarks have been out. How many times have these benchmarks been out? And we've asked for the districts to send in their comments. We've asked for individuals to send in their comments. And we haven't received them. Now, the benchmarks need to be revised, and also we have to take into account what charter schools were designed to be. They're replicas of school districts now. So we just pass over that. I don't even want to go there. What I'd like for us to do, and I would like for our legislators who are listening to revisit the law. I don't like being in this position of saying no to any kid who was in this charter school who is doing well. All the children are doing well. But there's some other things on the other side of why they may be doing is exceptionally well that we don't address. So I think that I'm going to end there. I made the recommendation. I voted against it last month. I'm back here saying it's 3 years. Give them a time to open their other school, to make the adjustments on the areas that we said that needs to be adjusted. And then carry on, Chancellor Rosa.
Okay. All right. There are no more comments to be made. David and Allison, David and Allison, did you want to speak to any of the many points and comments that have been raised, or have they been sufficiently addressed to this point?
We have 2 motions on the floor. You have the motion that's in the item and my motion. So how are you going to handle that?
David, I was asking a question first. David and Allison, did you want to speak to any of the many comments that were made during this discussion?
I would just say that the rationale, I think we've had over these past 2 Regents meetings, there's been questions on our consistency as decision makers, and our rationale for making these decisions goes back to the Regents' policies and the framework and the law. We've outlined rationale is on page 9 of the Regents item as to why we made the recommendation for a full term 5-year renewal. And I think those words speak for themselves, but of course, we're always happy to answer any questions. In terms of the new school, the Buffalo Academy of Science 2, my apologies, Regent Collins, we actually approved that in December of 2019, and we made a finding that that the school at the time did have the capacity to run both schools. They've spent the last year working to increase that capacity so that they have more educators, more teachers. I would point out that the school does have a significant number of minority educators, both at the administrative level as well as teachers. Can they do a better job? Of course, any school can do a better job. Just like all of our schools, we'll continue to engage in robust monitoring and oversight. Charter term is. And so even if we give them a full term 5-year renewal, that doesn't mean that we'll show up 5 years later. We do check and visit every year for every single one of the Board of Regents authorized charter schools, and we would be happy to provide updates as to their progress regarding benchmark 9, but across all of the benchmarks. So with that, I would turn it back to you, Vice Chancellor.
Okay, Aaron, you can check me on this. Perhaps this is not the best approach, but it appears that we're talking about, just from the tone, it sounds like we're talking about a 3-year or a 5-year. I'm wondering if we should take 2 votes, if we should first take a vote on renewal by itself and then take another vote as to 5-year or 3-year. What do you think?
We can sever. There are a number of bifurcated ways of approaching this, and for the record, right now we have an intention to make a different motion, but I do not read any motions pending on the floor. The item is phrased for a full 5-year approval of a full 5-year renewal. That could be voted on, and failing that, an alternative vote could be made for a shorter. Or we can deem the issue, we could have a motion to approve the renewal and then the length of the term. That is somewhat unique, and I don't believe has been so bifurcated in the past.
Mr. Vice Chancellor, Vice Chancellor, I would recommend that we hear a motion to amend. The main item on the table is a recommendation from the staff for a 5-year renewal. We should act on Regents Collins offering a motion to amend, see if the amendment passes, and then act on the main motion would be my recommendation.
Well said, Regent Norwood, and I am going to accept that offer. And we will take that approach. Regent Collins? And again, before us is actually, I think first there has to be a moving of the motion. I don't know that it's been moved. I will move the motion for a 5-year renewal.
I'll second it. Did I? Yeah.
Now I believe, Regent Collins, you have
the opposite, Mr. Vice Chair.
I'm sorry?
Now would be the appropriate time to entertain Regent Collins' motion. Please correct me that your motion, ma'am, is to modify the motion for a 3-year.
That's correct. That's correct.
And I second that motion.
I seconded.
Who is the second? I'm sorry, who is the first second?
Regent Tillis.
Regent Tillis.
Regent Tillis, seconded.
So to be clear, Regents, this vote will be not on renewal or non-renewal. This vote is to whether or not to modify your vote to consider it for 3 years instead of 5 years. Then Correct. We vote on whatever the surviving item is. Is there any need for discussion on the modification motion, Vice Chancellor?
No. Call the vote, please.
Thank you. Vice Chancellor Brown, on the motion to modify from 3 years to 5 years. 5 years to 3
No,
years.
5 years to 3 years.
No.
This is 5 years to 3 years.
Correct.
No.
Regent Tillis,
Yes.
Regent Young,
No.
Regent Sia.
Can you say what I'm voting for again, please?
There is a motion pending by Regent Collins, second by Regent Tillis, to change the item from a 5-year renewal to a 3-year renewal.
No.
Regent Norwood,
Nay.
Regent Cashin,
Yes.
Regent Cottrell,
No.
Regent Finn,
I haven't decided yet.
second
Call me at the
call
end.
for
Call me
Regent.
at the end.
Oh, that's a cop-out.
Yeah, that is.
That is absolutely not a cop-out. I am trying to make up my mind. This is very important. So don't call it a cop-out.
Okay, sorry.
I'm going to vote. You didn't ever hear me abstain from anything.
Second call for Regent Finn. Regent Chin, your vote?
No.
Regent Odekirk,
Yes.
Regent Collins,
Yes, for 3 years, yes.
Regent Meade,
No.
Regent Hackinson,
She's muted.
Regent Hackinson? Regent Hackinson?
unmute yourself.
Unmute.
Sam.
You have to unmute Regent Hackinson.
There.
Okay, yes.
Regent Reyes,
Yes.
Regent Mittler,
Yes.
Regent Wills.
No.
Second call, Regent Finn.
No.
Give me a moment, please.
Reason matters.
7 yeses.
Chancellor, we may record your vote, but it will not determine the outcome.
No.
Motion to modify the item from a 5-year renewal to a 3-year renewal fails by my count of a vote 10 votes no, 7 votes yes. We will now proceed to vote on the original item of a full 5-year renewal. This motion has been made by Vice Chancellor Brown with a second by Regent Sia and will continue in light of the failed modification. Vice Chancellor Brown, your vote on the 5-year renewal.
Yes.
Regent Tillis,
Yes.
Regent Young,
Yes.
Regent Sia,
Yes.
Regent Norwood. Regent Norwood, sir, you have to unmute yourself.
I'm sorry, Aaron, I wound up with an email that needed my attention. My vote is aye.
Okay, and I'd like to we have a fire alarm going off in the state education building right now. But
Just be safe, Aaron.
thank you, Regent Norwood. Your yes vote has been recorded. Regent Cashin,
Yes.
Regent Cottrell,
Yes.
Regent Finn,
If I'm going to reconsider, I have to go all the way. Yes.
Regent Chin,
Yes.
Regent Odekirk,
Yes.
Regent Collins,
I can't breathe. Yes.
Regent.
I know everyone understands that. I can't breathe.
Regent Mead.
Yes.
Regent Hackinson.
Yes.
Regent Reyes.
Abstain.
Regent Mittler.
With great reluctance, I will vote yes for the children.
Regent Wills.
Yes.
Chancellor Rosa, final vote.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously with one extension. The Buffalo Academy of Science Charter School charter is renewed for 5 years.
Yay.
Yay. May I ask for 60 seconds to assess the status of the fire alarm in the education building, please?
60 seconds.
Vice Chancellor?
Yes, Regent Finn.
I want to apologize to my colleague, Dr. Cottrell, for losing my temper. But I just want everyone to understand these are very serious votes to me. And if I feel I've made a mistake, then I want to make it right. And I had to think about that.
Okay.
So don't rush me.
Regents, we're all clear and should move on to the next charter school.
Our third item is A9 revised, charter revisions for 3 New York City Department of Education authorized charter schools. These 3 revision recommendations are from the New York City DOE Chancellor, and pursuant to Article 56 of the Education Law, the regents are required to either adopt the charter entity's recommendation, and the revision will go into effect, or vote to return the New York City DOE Chancellor's recommendation for reconsideration with written comments and recommendations. And in that case, any rationale should be consistent with Education Law 2852-2, which we outlined at the very beginning. Unlike actions for Board of Regents authorized charter schools, the regents in this circumstance do not technically have the option to vote no, and they're unable to modify the proposal for consideration. The first school here is a Bronx Academy of Promise Charter School, located in the Mount Eden neighborhood in New York City Charter Community School District 9. And the New York City DOE is recommending an expansion. Recommending an expansion of enrollment from 615 students to 815 students in the school's existing grade level configuration of kindergarten through grade 8. The school is located in private space and will remain so. And the rationale given by the New York City DOE Chancellor for this proposed revision is the school's strong academic outcomes and high demand from the community. The second of the 3 is Ember Charter School for Mindful Education, Innovation, and Transformation, located in New York City Community School District 16 in Brooklyn. Currently serves kindergarten through grade 8. And the DOE is recommending a grade level expansion to add high school to the existing kindergarten through grade 8 configuration with a corresponding student enrollment increase from 792 students to 1,162 students. Now, one of the, on the table on page 11 has an error, which is why the item was revised. One of the years listed in the proposed enrollment table on page 11 is incorrect. It says 2021, 22 twice on the chart and in the footnote. But the final year in the table should actually be 2022, 23. Okay. So the rationale given by the New York City DOE Chancellor for this proposed revision is the school's strong academic outcomes in English language arts and high demand from the community. The school's ELA outcomes exceed both district and state proficiency rates. The school's math outcomes are slightly above the district and below the state. The school enrolls fewer students with disabilities and economically disadvantaged students compared to District 16. This school has an Afrocentric focus, and further details on the school can be found in the Regents item. The third school listed in this item is Summit Academy Charter School in Red Hook in New York City Community School District 15, and it serves grades 6 through 12. At the May 2019 Board of Regents meeting, the Regents approved a renewal for Summit that included a requirement to restructure the school. So this revision would fulfill the conditions placed on the school at its prior renewal. The New York City DOE Chancellor is recommending the school's charter be revised to enable them to enter into a contract with the Center for Educational Innovation to provide comprehensive management services connected with the restructuring. The revision being proposed does not result in an increase in the grade levels or in the number of students being served in this charter school. And we did speak with the regents in whose areas these schools are located, and I will pause here.
Wow, you're way up there, huh?
Oh yeah, I'm a mile plus.
There are no questions. Proceed.
So we ready for a vote on this item?
Eric?
If the board is ready to proceed, we would entertain a motion to approve the 3 revisions as summarized in the item.
So moved.
Second.
Vice Chancellor Brown.
Second.
I'm sorry, by.
Second.
Thank you, Regent Young.
Before we tally, I will entertain discussion because I see a hand had gone up. Regent Cashin.
Okay, thank you. I'm sitting here worried about my iPad because I have it's on 7% and I have it plugged in. So I'm preoccupied.
Mine's on 3.
Pardon?
No, I said mine is on 3. I have the same problem.
I'm really dying, but okay. So thank you for letting me have this opportunity. I'm worried about, in general, the expansion of charters. Mm-hmm. And I'll go into the details of this charter in a minute if I still have power. The charter schools are expanding and they're taking away money from the public schools. It's different when you form a charter, you get startup money from the federal government. Right. When you expand a charter, it comes from the pot of the public schools. And when I was inquiring as to how much a grade would cost, I never imagined it would be $1 million. I never imagined for a big school, it might be several million. So this is something I'm thinking long and hard about, and I'm very concerned. With the pandemic and the financial fiscal crisis we have, taking any money away from a public school is, at this point in time, catastrophic. So I'll get back on that. Briefly, let me address Amber. Amber has a level 1 in math. Now, I checked out the data both on SED and on the New York City dashboard. How do you give a high school with all the geometry and algebra and trigonometry when there's a level 1 in math? It's shocking to me to even consider it, because you need to do a lot of work with the elementary and middle school students over time to develop their capacity, as well as the teachers. So level 1 in math, when you're going for a high school, is shocking to me. The 6th, 7th, and 8th grades move toward children leaving the school. It's not a longitudinal study, but I have snapshots of 71 in 6th grade, 46 in 7th grade, 29 in 8th grade. that's a retention rate of about 36. And you know, when you do attrit kids, all of us, I know, realize that if you attrit the lowest kids, then your scores might get a bump in reading. A year ago, parents from District 16 came to me, wrote letters. They don't want another charter. They are the second highest in the city in charter schools. First is District 5 in Harlem. Second is District 16. Second highest. They said to me, I don't want another expansion. We don't want, these were the significant parent leaders. When I looked into this and I see 90% of their teachers are teaching out of license, 90%. The New York State average is, I think, 11. So to have an expansion when a school has a level 1 in math is not something that, to me, is a good decision. It's a poor decision. So I definitely would not recommend this school for expansion. But what I'm saying for us to consider, if I may, I won't go on for too long. I have been waiting, and I'm anxious about my charge. We have to start biting the bullet on the public schools. Money is being taken away where some districts don't have money for teachers. Really, it's serious. It's one thing when you establish a charter and you get startup money. It's another thing when it's almost $1 million, depending on the size of the school. And it may be very much more than $1 million to expand a school. So we have to bite the bullet on helping our public schools. The expansions are worrying me greatly. I don't want to have a district who can't afford teachers. I don't want to have a district that doesn't have after-school activities because so much money has been taken away. I also think we need to have a process for expansion. We need to look at their levels in reading and math, look at their attendance, look at their attrition rates and retention rates, because that's a backdoor way of getting the scores up. So I think that would be an important thing to do as well. Am I allowed to make a motion now?
We don't have the.
I'd like to make a motion, but.
The main motion hasn't been called yet.
Okay.
The motion has been made by Vice Chancellor Brown and Regent Young, but is open for discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry. It had been so long that I had forgotten that the motion was made and seconded.
Well, I would like to make a motion, but let me go on for a minute and then we'll decide. I just don't want to pass this over and just go along to get along. This is big. Our public schools are going to lose maybe a third of their budgets. Big time losses because of the pandemic. Not just a little loss. And then they have to absorb the expansion of a school, which I never in my wildest imagination thought it would be $1 million or more. So this school, to me, definitely should, I would send it back. School Ember, I would recommend sending it back at the very least. But the bigger issue for me is, and it's not going away, expansion of charter schools, hurting our public schools who are going to have a big, big cut in their budgets. Some have said 30% of their budgets. Somebody's calling me. I won't answer.
If I could just say
so I think I'm going to make a motion if I am allowed to. Or
okay, the motion has been, the main motion has been made and seconded. So I believe you would be looking to make a motion to amend.
Well, I'd like to amend them. I think we need to really, well, first of all, I said we need to have a guideline, a framework for allowing schools to expand. It's not just, oh, I want to be a high schooler, I want to be a junior high schooler.
Regent Cashman, you understand your position. There's been a motion that's
Okay.
been made and seconded. If you are making a motion to amend that, then if you can be precise as to what it is
Well,
you're asking.
could you read the motion? Read the motion that was made and seconded, please.
The motion that was made and seconded is to vote to approve the recommendations of the New York City Department of Education for each of the 3 schools listed: Bronx Academy of Promise Charter School, Ember Charter School for Mindful Education, Innovation and Transformation, and Summit Academy Charter School.
Well, now, see, I think that we need to amend that because we're voting on all 3. I'm just talking about the one that I did research on, the one I met parents about, that's Ember. The other 2, I would never vote if I didn't do the research on it in terms of what needs to be done. So I need to have the motion amended for us to vote on Ember. And then I'd like to make another motion in general to address the issue that I think we're not addressing with the fiscal crisis that is definitely going to emanate from the pandemic.
So what would be in order, Vice
We
Chair?
need to separate them.
Regent
We need to
Cashman?
separate.
Yeah, I'd like to separate the votes, and then I'd like to make another motion.
One at a time.
Gentlemen, ladies
One at a
and
time, please.
Regent Cashin, do I properly understand your motion as one to initially sever Ember Charter School from the group of 3 that are up for consideration?
Yes, Aaron, that's exactly what I want.
And to consider that item separately?
Yes, and then
Is there
can
a
I
second?
make another motion in general?
No, let's deal with one at a time. I'll second that, the severing.
Vice Chancellor, I don't know if you can second that because you were one of the primary movements, sir.
I'll second it. Regent Mittler will second that.
So right now, we are only voting on a motion to sever Ember Charter School from the group of 3. We have a motion by Regent Cashin, second by Regent Mittler. Vice Chancellor Brown on the motion to sever.
No.
Your vote, sir?
No.
Regent Tillis?
Yes.
Regent Young?
No.
Regent Sia?
No.
Regent Norwood?
Aye.
Regent Cashin?
Yes.
Regent Cottrell? Regent Finn?
Regent Cottrell is muted.
I'm sorry.
I think I voted wrong.
I have Regent Cashin as a yes. Regent Cottrell, your vote, sir?
No, I can't either. I'll be fine. I'll be all right. Thank you.
That is a yes, Regent Cottrell?
Yes.
Thank you.
No, I'm sorry, it's a no, it's a no.
Regent Cottrell, your vote on whether or not to sever Ember Charter School for a separate vote, yes or no?
No.
Regent Finn? Second call for Regent Finn. Regent Chin?
No.
Regent Oedeker?
No.
Regent Collins?
Yes.
Regent Mead?
No.
Regent Hackinson?
Yes.
Regent Reyes?
No.
Regent Mittler?
Yes.
Regent Wills?
No.
Second call for Regent Finn. Regent Finn will be noted as absent for the purposes of the vote. Chancellor Rosa, you may vote, but it will not determine the outcome.
No.
Motion to sever Ember Charter School as a separate item fails 9 votes to 6 with 1 member absent. We will now proceed to vote on the original item, which has been moved to approve all 3 items: Bronx Academy of Promise Charter School, Ember Charter School for Mindful Education, Innovation, and Transformation, and Summit Academy Charter School in accordance with the recommendations by the New York City Department of Education. Vice Chancellor Brown, your vote, sir.
Yes.
Regent Tillis.
Yes.
Regent Young.
Yes.
Regent Sia.
Yes.
Regent Norwood.
Aye.
Regent Cashin.
Yes.
Regent Cottrell.
Yes.
Regent Finn. Second call, Regent Finn. Regent Chin.
Yes.
Regent Odekirk.
Yes.
Regent Collins.
I can't breathe. Yes.
Regent Meade.
Yes.
Regent Hackinson.
Yes.
Regent Reyes.
Yes.
Regent Mittler.
I honestly don't know how to vote. This is against my better conscience. I don't think it's the right thing, but I'm looking at my colleagues, and everyone here is just going ahead with it. And when the financial burden comes and the children don't get what they want, I don't want to be responsible. I will vote yes only so that there's unity on the Regents. I'm ashamed of our vote. I can't breathe.
Regent Wills.
Yes.
Second call, Regent Finn. Absent for purposes of the vote. Chancellor vote, the yes is in hand. Your vote for the record.
Yes.
Unanimous with 1 member absent.
Yes.
Motion.
May I make a motion? May I make a motion?
It depends on the type of motion, ma'am.
New motion, Aaron.
That depends on the type of motion you're considering, ma'am.
Without saying it.
I would like to make a motion. Well, I'll tell you what my motion is, and then you let me know whether it's acceptable or not. I move to have a moratorium on the expansion of existing charters because of the fiscal crisis that has been created by the pandemic, to be reviewed, yearly.
I do not believe that motion is an outgrowth from one of our existing Regents items and would not be appropriate at this time.
Okay, so at least I said it so everybody can hear.
In Regent Captain, I think you're some of the concerns I've heard today with the board regarding the fiscal challenges of charter schools is something that I too have heard a lot from our public school districts and the fiscal strain this is having on our public school districts. One of the things that I've discussed with Chancellor, and I think we do need to think about this moving into the next legislative session, is really taking a good look at the charter school funding formula and the way, and having it be separate and apart from the public school state aid, and making sure that they're 2 separate formulas and that it's not being pulled from public schools. This is something that Chancellor and I discussed, is maybe reevaluating the way that charter schools are funded. This is something I understand, this is a difficult vote for some of us because of what we've heard. I just wanted to make that note that we have been thinking about this, and Chancellor and I have talked about this in ways which we can maybe address this in the next legislative session and have some discussions with the legislature on the funding formulas that currently exist. So I do want you to know that this is being thought of.
All right, I believe we are have completed this item, and I believe that we can proceed to the next item pertaining to regulations in regard to licensing exams of the profession of public accountancy.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor. The Office of Professions actually has two emergency regulations. The first does relate to public accountancy, and I'd like to introduce Jennifer Winters, the Executive Secretary to that board, who can explain the item.
Hi, thank you this afternoon, Vice Chancellor, Chancellor, the members of the Regents, and the Interim Commissioner. The action before you, as Sarah said, is an emergency action on the Commissioner's Regulation Part 70, Section 70.4, that is in regards to the licensing examination for the profession of certified public accountancy. The item before you addresses several changes to the certified public accountant examination that are happening on the national level. The first change is to the 4 sections of the CPA exam that are required to be passed within an 18-month rolling window. The change in the regulation allows for more flexibility to candidates for how frequently they can take exams, or they can retake exams they may not have passed on the first attempt. This national change is set to take place on July 1st, 2020, which is, I'll go over at the end, but is the date of this regulation effective date. The next is the CPA Evolution Project that is underway again on the national level across all 55 jurisdictions with the uniform CPA exam. It is to address the licensure model, including the 3 E's for licensure,